Hello. It is easier for me to go live to discuss Sandra Greenman than it is to type it all out. Let me go on this page and find where people are talking about Sandra, and we'll go through that. All right. And who am I? Since everybody always asks, my name is Jax West. I run Stephen Avery Project and MAM Gossip along with some moderators. I am not related to the family. Okay. So somebody posted in Gossip today a picture that Sandra Greenman posted in her official her Facebook group that she always has to be, it's the official Stephen group, where it's a picture of her with Stephen and says, "What a day to take pics. I was sick." And Lisa says she creeps me out, LOL. And Lisa's Corey Whittemore is who made the original post. Then Mark said, "I don't like this lady, and she messed with Steve's head big time when she decided to end it at the time. Headgear her." Mary says, "I don't understand her involvement in this entire thing." And then Lisa Marie said she was the one who contacted Kathleen to take on his case. And Crystal said, but KZ didn't reply to her, so she didn't get KZ to do anything. And then Lori said Ryan Ferguson, her previous client, is the one who told her to watch Making a Murderer. That's why she got interested. Sandy had nothing to do with that. Then Brian, who seems to be somebody who wants to cause drama here, says, if that was a recent visit, then what's the problem? He clearly still likes her and is allowing her to visit him. She will know more about this whole case than any of we do. And then Mary said, well, that's true. And I said, it's actually not true. She acts like she knows it all, but she doesn't. Stephen will never fully trust her again. She is nuts. And then Brian said, I keep forgetting people on here know more than people directly connected to Stephen. So he's whatever. And I said, I heard about it from Stephen himself, but thanks for playing. And Joan says, sorry, but I feel she wants a spotlight and Facebook friends. How she has used Stephen's name to attack people that are visiting him or made her look very childish on her Facebook group. And seeing her and family members that felt he was guilty and changed their testimony, protesting in their town is just ridiculous. And hey, my basement flooded. Can you all help me too? Oh, make sure relatives get Red Lobster for dinner. What a mock. And then Joan said, and the creepy guy doing the car magnets and stalking women, did they get rid of him? I hope. No, they're still fully endorsing that guy. Crystal says, Brian, you're more than welcome to go follow her fake page instead of being in this group. And Brian says, already do. And Crystal says, well, you're in the wrong group here if you choose to believe Sandy. And Mary says, Joan, who is the creepy guy doing the car magnets and stalking women? Also, I honestly had no idea there was so much controversy surrounding Sandy, but my gut said something was off about her. And Joan said, yes, they had a man doing the car magnets that are for sale, and he was messaging women weirdly. And Kenneth says, Brian, haha, good one, mate. And then Heather says, Stephen Avery Project, I love you. Julia says, I think she is obsessed with him and she wants him to love her, but he won't because she isn't his type. He likes them young, meaning younger than her. She's not attractive enough for him, but he needs her. Christopher says she looks like a corpse. Becky says, can someone explain why majority of people on here don't like her? Not trying to start drama, but I genuinely don't know. And I've seen people talking about her and I'm confused. And then I said, Becky, I'm out on errands right now, but I will circle back and give you the history when I can. And Becky said, thank you. And then there's a whole bunch of people saying they're following, which now they'll have to find this video. Then Erica says she helped him when no one else would. If it wasn't for her, Catherine wouldn't be on his case right now. And I said, Erica, she had nothing to do with KZ, taking SA's case. She only took it after MAM came out. Erica said, I thought she was the one who wrote letters to KZ for like 4 years and got her to watch it. Kim said Erica Ryan Ferguson, whom KZ exonerated years ago, told her to watch MAM. Sandy did write to her several times, but had zero influence in KZ's decision to take the case. Diana said, Erica, what Kim said. Ryan encouraged KZ to take a look at this case. Erica said, I didn't know that, y'all. Thanks for the info. Kristen says, Kathleen, not Catherine. Julia says, she made it sound like she contacted KZ after Stephen watched Dateline. Leva says, I've heard it was Ryan Ferguson that told KZ about Stephen Avery. Haley says, most people watched as she canceled their engagement in a TV interview. And if you're a part of her group, you better kiss ass to her and other few women who think they run Stephen's fans, or you'll get the boot. Don't speak bad about the other suspects because they're family members, and definitely don't speak up against any fundraising attempts. If you want fake, then be fake along with her. Most people in here have open minds, ask questions, and are transparent in their beliefs about Stephen and Brendan's case. If you're not and can't get well along with other opinions and play nicely, then go to her group. There you'll be in La La Land and can consume all the bullshit you desire. Kim says, Haley, I thought it was the fame whore Lynn H. that broke off their engagement on Dr. Phil. Haley said they both did. Haley said Sandy was first. Haley says, and I don't give a fuck if you go and screenshot this because I've already been booted for saying what I think over and over again. Hazel said, it's just not fair. Crystal said, Sandy played with Stephen's heart and started a lot of drama. She thinks she knows everything and tries to take center of attention and tries to take credit for everything. She tells lies and tries to manipulate Stephen and turn him against everyone else who believes he is innocent and then does not follow her rules or reasons. Maz said, lovely photo of Stephen. Erica says, if Sandy makes him happy, then so be it. He deserves happiness and all that he has been through. And Crystal says, oh, but she doesn't really. He knows not to believe anything Sandy says. And Kathy says, sick in the head. And now I'll go to your comments. Oh, I can't scroll all the way back. So the first one I can kind of see is Natasha saying, what did I miss? And Victoria says, is this about Sandy? Yes. Just joined. I always thought she was a bad person for Stephen or against him, but then saw her supporting him. And Lisa says, discussing Sandy. And Julie says, just got here. What is Jack's reading from? Christy says, a post about Sandra Greenman. And Clive and Sandy says, hi, Jazz. Love from York, UK. So, hello, everyone. All right. Here's the history of Sandy. All right. And I'm going to do what I do and give it to you straight. All right. And so it might not sound the nicest. Ready? Okay. Who is Sandra Greenman? Sandra Greenman is an old lady who had a terminally ill husband, and she was lonely. So she started writing to Stephen Avery because her husband was going to die. And she will say even her husband encouraged her to have a friendship, I believe, with Stephen. So she was just looking for attention and somebody to talk to. So an inmate is somebody to focus on because they like can't get away, I guess. So she started a friendship with Stephen. Stephen falls in love with any woman that gives him attention. And so Stephen thought of it as a real relationship. And yes, this was prior to making a murderer. But remember, her reason in doing it is she's a lonely old lady that wants male attention. And Stephen is the one that saw Kathleen on some show he watched. And so he knew that was the lawyer he wanted. So then he told Sandra to reach out to Kathleen Zellner on his behalf. And Stephen himself would also write to her. Nothing. They heard nothing. So then Making a Murderer came out in December, was this huge hit. And then, yes, Ryan Ferguson, who she had freed, watched it and told her she should look into that. And then, so Kathleen then took Stephen's case in the beginning of January. Had nothing to do with Sandra Greenman. I know that's the story she now tells people is, oh, I got Kathleen for him. No, she did not. She wrote letters to Kathleen and reached out to Kathleen because Stephen told her to do it, but that didn't get Kathleen Zellner. She did not come on board until Making a Murderer was this huge sensation, and Ryan Ferguson urged her to look into it. That's first. All right. So she does not get any credit whatsoever for Kathleen being on the case. Second, when you see Making a Murderer, she says right in there that she dumped him because he wouldn't accept Jesus Christ as his personal Lord and Savior. So that's in Making a Murderer Part 1. Then, when Making a Murderer is a big sensation, she breaks up with him again on there. To which Stephen knows none of it. She doesn't say anything to him about breaking up. So he finds out about it because of what's out in the media. So he has told me that is something he will never forget, and they will never be a couple again. She has always manipulated and played games with people visiting Stephen. And so she got her friends, Tracy and Angie, on talking to Stephen. So like they would go and visit Sandy. You know, they would have these parties at her house all the time, and you would see, not all the time, but you would see the pictures of, oh, look at us, we're so bonding and we all like each other. Well, so these girls are using Sandra so they can get close to Stephen, and so they'd be able to talk. So Stephen would call Sandy while they're all at her house, and so they would all get to talk to him on the phone. And then from there, he would call them, and then they got put on his visitors list. And then Sandy got upset. Wait, I'm missing a whole bunch of stuff in the timeline, but I'll just finish that little part, and then, so this won't be in the proper order. So Sandy got upset and told Stephen that those girls used her because now they're not coming to her house as much as they used to, because, you know, now they got their in to go visit Stephen. And she felt used and pissed off. And so she told Stephen to remove Tracy and Angie from his visitors list. And he did. But then, how it twists and turns, Stephen then started calling me when he removed Tracy and Angie. Now, I hadn't heard from him for the 6 months that Tracy and Angie had been on his visitors list. But I kept doing what I do. Stephen Avery Project kept going the way always, you know, we support Stephen's innocence. So, so Stephen starts calling me and then tells me he's putting me on his list. I'd never been on his list before. Now he puts me on his list. To which then Sandy and Carla make public posts saying that if Stephen allows me to visit him, they will never have anything to do with him again, and they will only support Brendan. So these are these great, oh, they're so good to Stephen, right? This is his niece, and this is this woman who keeps trying to say at times that she's dating him when she's not. But because he'll talk to or put me on his list, they won't talk to him anymore. So, in the short time that I have visited with Stephen, Sandy had also said to Stephen at that time to take her off his list, that she was so upset that he put me on the list that she wanted him to remove her. And he told me he didn't remove her. You know, he doesn't care one way or the other. Sorry. Got my nice Sonic cherry aid. So they're all desperate to get me off of his list because I'm not going to play their stupid games. I do not have to be at their slumber parties and have pillow fights and, all that. I don't need those people to be my friends. I don't need to have anything to do with those people to support Steven. So then Sandy told Steven that I was talking shit about his mother. And so that's what got it. So Steven is currently mad at me and not speaking to me again. And that he tells people that he removed me off his list. So, and it's all because Sandy just really doesn't want people visiting him that she can't control. And she's going to do everything she can to get you knocked off the list. Here's something else she did previously. So, yes, when Steven was dating the horrible Lynn, Sandra was so upset about it that she sold the story to a British tabloid where she said some awful things about Steven. So that's what she does when Steven talks to somebody she doesn't want him talking to. She goes and sells a story and rips on him. That's who Sandra Greenman is. So Steven tells me he just keeps her around because she's pretty much just going to do what he says for the most part. And that once he's free, bye-bye, he won't have anything to do with her. So Steven is basically using her right now. So that's just the truth of it. So I am somebody Steven can't just tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. I always told Steven and was upfront with him, I do not like his family, and anything that concerns his family other than his parents are the only ones that have always been there for Steven and have never played any games or manipulation or whatever. So Dolores and Alan are the only ones that have 100% backed Steven. The rest of them, I could give two shits about. And they have shown themselves time and time again to be thieves. Steven even tells me himself they are all thieves. So when they have a fundraiser for Steven and the money is going through their hands first, no. So that's a thing that they don't like that I do, that I put a damper on their money-making enterprises, as well as like when Sandra has a GoFundMe for herself because her basement floods. No. So I understand when people say she's who makes Steven happy, because I totally agree. Like when Steven was dating Lynn, everybody knew that this was a money grub and hoe. But I was like, well, if that's what Steven wants. Same thing with Sandy. Whatever. I would never tell Steven, don't talk to Sandy. Talk to whoever you want. I truly don't care. I'm, not one of those that I want Steven to like me best. I don't care if Steven likes me. So, but please don't misunderstand Sandra's intentions here. And this is all about getting attention for herself. From the very first time that she contacted Steven, it's because she was a lonely old lady and wanted male attention. And here's what she did. Not only when Steven started dating Lynn, did she sell a story to a tabloid, she then started talking to, because she talks to other inmates. So she started talking to a pedophile in Steven's prison, who she then claimed she was dating, and she had even changed her Facebook status to say she was now engaged to this pedophile. That's how desperate that woman is to just, oh man. But Steven obviously gets her the most attention. So, here, let me scroll through what you guys are saying. Tanya says, I'd for sure like to hear what she's exactly like, as I don't know much about her. Natasha says, I actually thought she was okay for a bit. Then I saw the Dr. Phil piece. Terry said, Sandy is all about Sandy. If it benefits her to be close to Steven, then she'll find a way to be close to Steven by any means necessary. Victoria says, honestly, who cares? Who gives two craps about this? The family is close to her. Let it go, folks. Well, I don't care if the family is close to her because the family are pieces of shit. So that means nothing, Victoria, that the family is close to her. And I also know the family hates her guts. Both Carla and Barb have told me themselves of how much they hate Sandy. So it's all just this fake thing that these people do whatever they have to do so they can still be connected to Steven and get the attention. Tanya says, oh my God, that's crazy. Keena says, don't forget she sold his story. Victoria says, see ya. So is that Victoria has now left the group. Natasha says she must be in her late 70s now. I can't remember how old she is, but she's old enough to be Steven's mother. That I know. And Steven has made no bones about it that once he's free, he wants a wife and kids. So that's not happening with Sandra. Victoria says, this was the first group I saw about Steven and joined it. Ever since, I've always known you, Jax, is doing things, spreading awareness from the good of your heart, not to get money or get fame. Well, Victoria, that's what I always laugh about that when people say it's about to get fame, because, oh my God, am I ripped apart by Sandra and the family and the like. So, this is something that I'm sure. Well, look at Curtis, the one who started Stephen Avery Project. He didn't even last a full year before he ran off and said, I can't do this anymore. He could not deal with what Sandra and Carla were doing to him. So it's hard doing this if you're not in their clique. You know, but I'm a bigger bitch, I guess I would say. And I don't need to be liked. I don't care. For me, right is right, wrong is wrong. Good evening, Connie. Victoria says, I think they give you the fame. You're not actively trying to get it. Well, and I guess it wouldn't be fame. It would be infamy then, right? Infamy is when you're infamous, when you're famous for being bad. Isn't that what infamous is? Or for doing something bad? Becky says, why does Sandra have a vendetta against you? Is it just because she doesn't like people being close to Steven? Well, Sandra and I used to be friendly. Sandra, I used to protect her and defend her. And we used to talk on the down low because she couldn't admit that she and I talked, because then the family would attack her. So she kept it secret. And she really turned on me when Steven said he put me on the list. I think that's when things really turned. And she also didn't like, somebody had said something about her being his girlfriend, and she didn't tell them that was incorrect, and I did, because she's not his girlfriend. She hasn't been in years and years and years. But she won't correct people when they say it because it looks better for her to be Steven's girlfriend. And she's not Steven's girlfriend, nor will she ever be. She is just a person Steven uses to put out there stuff he wants out there. Jillian says, didn't they call you the queen bee before? Yes, I can't remember. Yeah, something got said. I was queen bee. So Sandy started this just because she wanted attention, right? But it wasn't quite like evil intentions or anything like that then, even though it still wasn't pure. It was just she's lonely. Now she's been turned because, you know, she's been in Making a Murderer and she likes this attention she's getting on social media. So it's more about the attention she gets than about anything actually happening for Steven. And once Steven is free, I've said this about all of them, Carla, you know, their whole little group of people, once Steven is out, their time ends. Because now he doesn't need anybody's help for putting stuff out that he wants out there. So he'll dump them all once he's free. He won't be talking to Sandy any longer. Connie says she's afraid of other women becoming close to him. She thinks that's her spot. Magnet Man called me that, Christy says, the queen bee. And then Lisa's asking, who is Magnet Man? Magnet Man is this creepy weirdo who makes these magnets about supporting Steven and Brendan. But in order to pay, and you had to pay this astronomical amount for these freaking magnets. And then your magnets have to be registered and you like have to fill out this contract to be a part of it, that you have to be tracked on where you are with your magnets. But this guy was also preying on women, and like he sent a topless photo of himself to one woman and asking like sexual things. He's just a creeper. And he freaked a lot of women out, yet those people still support it and want to make money off of these dumb magnets because, again, it's people trying to use Steven's name to make money for themselves. Christy says, Jax, can you address who he is real quick? Oh, there you go. I think I just did in a nutshell that I just, but it was a big to-do and people should have left that guy in the dust, yet they still push his magnets. And it's weird. I'm sorry. It's just really weird. Yeah, and Christy says more than one woman. He did it to several women. He is using this to try and pick up women. It's not good. Natasha says, but they were like 75 or something, and you had to record a video of it on your car. LOL, super sketchy. Yeah, and like I tell you guys, I don't do numbers, but I remember I then had asked Jeff what it would cost because my partner Jeff, he owns a print shop, and it's like they're severely getting ripped off on these magnets. You know, somebody's getting ripped off. Whether or not it's creepy guy getting ripped off by it or whatever, but somebody is making a ton of money on these magnets, and it's not Steven. So, like I said, I hopped on here because of that whole thing and asking about Sandy. So I figured I would come on here and address it because it's something we go over and over and over. I don't hate Sandra. She's a non-entity to me. I actually feel sad for her, I guess, because she's a lonely old woman and she's been manipulated as well, that she's so desperate now to not be a lonely old woman that she now has to put up with the crap she also gets from the family. So, and that everybody has these competitions over whose site or, you know, whose Facebook is the real one. So Carla's got one and now Sandy's got one, you know, that, and they want to, you know, compete over who's got the better one and all that. It's all dumb. But Stephen Avery Project, which we run, was the very first Making a Murderer Facebook page there was, started by Curtis Bussey right when the first Making a Murderer aired. And so we currently have, let me scroll up over here, 205,648 people. So again, Steven Avery Project is bigger than all other Steven Avery Facebook pages, MAM Gossip included, combined. So their competition all the time over who's going to be the biggest. You're never going to beat Steven Avery Project. It's just not going to happen. But that's also why they do things, because they want to shut it down, which I just say, and how does that make you a good supporter for wanting to take down the biggest support page for Steven? So it's just petty. Not going to take theirs down. I don't care about theirs. Doesn't matter to me. Have all the groups you want. I don't care. I don't go to them. I don't care what they say in there unless they talk about me. So because it's tit for tat. I talk about them. They talk about me. Whatever. Connie says, none of these women would have had anything to do with him under any other circumstance. Correct, Connie. None of these women. Carla hates Steven. Hates him. So she told me they were thrilled when he went away for Teresa. Got rid of him. They wanted him out of their lives, every single one of them, because she said when he got freed for those 2 years, he was such a dick and treated them all like shit. But they all took it because they wanted a piece of that $36 million. So they couldn't just cut Steven off because they're hoping to get some of his money. So they stuck around for that. And Steven treated them like shit, as he should have, because the 18 years he was in prison, they left him to rot. Nobody cared about him other than his parents. And now when he goes away for Teresa Halbach, they're all saying he's guilty. None of them visited him except his parents and Barb. You can look at In Style. And I know we have them in the pictures here in Gossip. In Style got the visitor logs. So you can see how none of them visited Steven until Christmas of 2015. Making a Murderer came out in December 2015. So they didn't go visit him until Making a Murderer aired and became a big sensation. Now, tail between their legs. Now we want to go be with Steven. Because look at this. All these people say he's innocent and it's a big deal and we can get attention. No other comments right now. So anybody else have any questions on Sandra Greenman? And I know there's going to be people in this group who are going to, show it to Carla. Hi, Carla. You getting ready for your GoFundMes for trying to get gifts for yourselves and Thanksgiving dinner and such? It's right around the corner. And whatever. I'm telling you facts. These are facts. This isn't me just, talking shit. This is the evolution of Sandra Greenman with Steven. Let's see, another comment. Denise said, LOL. Okay. Sandra... What else can I say about Sandra? Is there anything else to say? Let's see. Christy just said something. Denise said Carla is a piece. Yeah. Christy said Christmas is coming. Darcy says, yes, I'm finally in alive. Well, you get here where, it's just a spur of the moment thing. Again, I do these a lot, that it's easier for me that people were discussing Sandra, wanted me to explain the whole Sandra evolution. I just got home from running errands. Jeff is out in the garage building something for our turtles because now it's really cold here. So our turtles have to come in from the pond, and he's building something for them to live in the house. for the winter. So I'm like, all right, I'll hop on real quick and just give a little Sandra talk. Christy says Earl needs Thanksgiving dinner. It's so funny. I'll have to find, well, I'm not, it will take me forever to find it right now. Earl made fun of me for being fat. Now, I fully admit I'm fat. You know, I totally, yes, I'm fat, but really, Earl's gonna make fun of me for being fat when he's probably twice my size? That was hysterical to me. Miley says, hey, Jax, I didn't know you were going live. What a treat. I didn't know I was going live either. Denise says, what kind of turtles do you have? So 2 of them I rescued that were out on the highway. So they're just the, are they the red-eared sliders? I think they're the red-eared sliders. And then I bought one, which is a side neck. So we currently have 3 turtles. Darcy says, normally it's too late or too early. I'm in Australia. I'm glad I found this group. I have the tea emoji already. Christy says, I have them. Give me a few. Carolyn says, does Sandra have kids and how do they feel about the case, her dating pedophiles? She's got kids and grandkids. I don't know how they feel about any of her dating of inmates and such. So I have no idea. I don't know her family or anything about them. Sonic cherry slushy. See. What else, since I'm on right now? What else is there to cover? Oh, so KZ should be filing for Steven tomorrow. So if we're able to get the filing, I will go live. Oh. So Christy, because I had sent her a screenshot at some point about when Earl was really attacking me in text. So he said, you're not worth my time, you fat bitch. Why don't you get a life, start working on a treadmill and take care of your medical condition? That's so funny. Oh my God. Yeah, he called me fat. Let me see if I can find because, he texted me. He didn't, this isn't Facebook message. Let me find my messages. Hey, just searching, it's not coming up. So do I have to literally scroll through all my text messages to find him? Talk amongst yourselves. I get a lot of stupid texts. And it was funny too, because one of the times when Earl was texting me all this, I was at Drizzen and Knight Rider had an event that I was at. And so he was texting me this stuff as I was sitting there. And then after the event, I talked with Drizzen and I showed him the text messages from Earl, where Earl is threatening me. Earl called me a cunt. God, I get too many text messages. All right. Christy just sent another one. He says, yes, and I got an eating addiction, so it's considered a medical condition. So fuck off, cycle. Because I got a, why did it just all of a sudden? Because I got a put up with people in, or should I say animals in my life like you. And now Christy's telling me I should just go to my messages with her and go into the photos where I can see them all. But now I'm just kind of, what is this? Now I'm all the way back in 2017, so I had to have missed them. Because I thought it happened last year. Because I know, too, that I brought my son and his girlfriend to the Drizzen thing. Because my son's girlfriend really likes making a murderer and stuff. So I brought them to it. Where is it? It's just funny looking at people who have messaged me. It was December 2018, Christy says. I'm in November of 2018 now, scrolling in my stuff. Oh, it's still November. John Farrick. There's Barb. Oh, it's funny when Barb out of the blue times will just text me. That's funny. It's not here. Why is it not in here? That's weird. So, all right, wait, let me scroll into your guys' stuff. Miley says, those are awesome. Love Sonic slushes. Yeah, it's so good. Oh, there are Facebook messages, not text, Christy tells me. Okay, I could have sworn it was text messages. All right, I'll look in that in a second. Corey says, can't wait for that. Oh, wow, when did you get those texts? Natasha says, laugh my fucking ass off. Lisa says, Earl apparently hasn't looked in a mirror. Darcy says, fuck, my phone died and I missed what happened since I commented. Darcy says, do you like cheese? I love cheese. Lily says, well, with his ICOO, because that's something Earl had said to me. That's how he spells IQ, being so high. I'm surprised he pays any attention to you. Julie says, I think maybe Earl might have swallowed Teresa. Case is solved. All right, let me see. Let me go into my messages. Or will it be easier to pull it up on my iPad instead of over here? Hold, please. Oh, see, and I hate when this happens because now when I'm going on here for my messages, I see the message requests that I don't see otherwise. That's so funny, Richard Boyd. All right, let me do this then. EARL. Searching. Come here, stupid. Why aren't you going? All right, I guess I have to just scroll this way because he obviously has me blocked. So me just trying to search him on there won't pull it up. So that's going to take a while too for me to find. Because I text with or message with people a lot. July. Oh, there's Sherry Buting. Sandra. God, this takes forever to go back. I'm in January. There he is. All right. Let me scroll all the way up and I'll read you my discussion with Earl. Oh, I probably should have done it on my iPad now that I'm looking at it as I scroll, because he does a lot of weird things with emojis. All right. Where is it? All right. So this first one from Earl was sent November 27th of 2018 at 10:36 p.m. And he said, I heard you were talking about me, that I shouldn't be trusted. Is this true? And I responded with, I said, Carla can't be trusted and that you are working with her now. I know Stephen trusts you and he doesn't trust her, which at this time was yes. And it's something I had said to Stephen. Stephen told me he trusted Earl and money was going, that he was having Earl be in charge of money. But now in these fundraisers they were doing, it was going to Carla and Earl. So I said, if Carla's attached to it, then no. So I don't care. And I told Stephen it too, that as long as Carla's attached, then no. I don't care if Earl is doing it with her, then no. So that was at 10:36 p.m. on 11/27. So then the next day on 11/28 at 9:32 p.m., he says, I will be talking to Steve. I'm pissed. Steve will not be talking to you no more. And these videos that you're making, I'm going to get Kathleen to stop him. You're against a family. Enough is enough. You're not going to be talking about me or my family no more. We'll put a gag order on you. And I said, go for it. And then he said, Steve was right. You are a bad person. And I said, back at you, babe. And he said, I am done with you and the family is going to be done with you too. It's all just mind your own business and keeping your own family. And I said, you were never with me. Don't rip off supporters then. And he says, you're stupid. You're stupid. Stupid. Next word, or than me. And I got a 40, the number's 40, then a space, the word to, T-O, then a space, and the word is, so it's not C, he spelled it I-K-I-O-O. And then he wrote, I got a 40 IQ. Now he's got the IQ, and you're stupider than me. So he was correcting himself. So that was 11/28. Then on 12/1 at 4:01 p.m., he sends me, hey, Brad Jr., we always have these fucking haters and jealous people that want attention like you and Brad, fucking assholes. Why don't you do us a favor and leave us alone and do something useful with your fucking miserable life? And I said, I'm not doing anything to you, but you sure are harassing me. And he said, all you want is attention. You're like an old fucking mutt. And I said, really? You're so charming. Are you flirting with me? Maybe not, because I'm an adult. Because, of course, I have to take the shot at him. Because if you didn't know, Earl's been in trouble because he set up a video camera to record children during his kids' pool party in his bathroom so he could watch kids change in and out of their bathing suits. He said, why don't you post some more stuff about me that everybody knows already? You're dumb cunt. Put that on there. You're going to be getting a letter from Steve from Zellner, and then you're going to be in court when Steve is suing you. And I said, sure, I am. Why did you hide under clothes? Why did you let them search without a warrant? Why did you tape children changing clothes? And he said, that is very old like you. I don't want, bitch, you know what you are called, right? You are called a bully, and I'm better than you. And I could be the stupidest person in the world, and I would still be better than you. And if you would know my ex-wife set me up, so you don't know everything. She's a stupid bitch like you because she didn't have enough guts to leave. Didn't know how I'm going to tell you this one more time. Leave my family alone. I put shit on the internet about your family doing something with your life. There's not a period anywhere in there. There's not any punctuation. So make your own sentence structure. I said, yes, I know you posted about me. Big deal. You got nothing and you're the one who doesn't have a life. I'm very happy in my life, but thanks for your concern. Now, remember now, while this is going on, I'm sitting at the Driz and Nyrider event. And then he says, if you were happy with your life, you wouldn't be on this, or shorten that site down. And that's what we're going to do. And I said, you can't, but someone with a 40 IQ, and I spelled it like he did, wouldn't know that. And he said, Zellner, I'll take it to court secretly so you don't get no fame or fortune. The whole family likes you just as much as Ken Kratz. And I said, LOL, you are pretty funny. And I'm so crushed that you guys don't like me. I don't know how I can carry on. And Earl says, I got to spend some quality time with my grandkids instead of wasting time with your worthless ass. Have a nice life. Keep me and my family are yours. And so I said, you do that. I'm with Drizzt and Nyrider now. I'll give them your best. And then I sent him, I should save this picture here. I sent him a picture because it's a picture of me with Nyrider and Drizzt. Here, let me save it and I'll be able to post it later for you. What the hell? All right, I'll post that later for you all, because so my son and his girlfriend were with me, so I was showing them these messages when they were coming in and stuff too. So I was like, oh, because we were already done talking with Drizzt and Nyrider at that point. But so then I went back and I had my son take a picture of me with them so I could send it to Earl because I'm that bitch. So then, okay, when was this? This was at 4. He didn't reply to my picture, but then he starts messaging me again at 10:10 p.m. He says, you got a post this one. I showed my mom and she says that she does not like you one bit. She don't ever want to see you again. And she likes everybody. And I said, sure she did. And then he said, I'm going to make a live video with her tomorrow about you. And I said, goody, all I want is attention. Thanks for talking about me. And he said, wait till she tells everybody that you're picking on her babies. Nobody's going to like you. And I said, how am I picking on you? And he says, I got over 3,000 friends on here. They show me everything you post. You are a bully and hater. Okay. And I said, how so? Because I say Carla steals money, which she does. And even Steven says so. And he says, Steven is out of your life. Get to that point. He don't want nothing to do with you. And I said, what does that have to do with Steven saying Carla is a thief? And he said, where are you have the right to be in somebody else's business? And I said, why do you keep ignoring the question? Carla is a thief. And now that was the last thing said until December 2nd at 2:45 p.m. He messages me and says, I called Manitowoc Sheriff Department on you. Do not step 1 foot on my property. I will get you for trespassing. 2 words, trespassing. And yes, I do got cameras. And I said, nope, no trespassing. You're all good. And he says, I have been patrolling the area anyway. And I said, not very well. I'm still here. So these messages were coming in. I had gone up to Manitowoc and did live because I was over by Cuss Road. And so I started getting these messages from him when we were driving home. But so that's why I said, not very well. I'm still here, even though I was nowhere near there. And Earl said, and I rent the property by the sign, so you better not be standing on my property because you will get a summons in the mail for trespassing. This time he spelled it right, because I did warn you. And I said, has to be posted by law. Sorry. And he says, I have it on Messenger that I told you. And I said, not legal. Why don't you ask KZ on that? And he said, you are such a psycho. And I said, which is so funny because when I'm reading it, I'm thinking something. And now I said the exact same thing I was just thinking in my head. I said, I'm impressed you could spell that because he spelled psycho correctly. But that's why I think he's not doing this all on his own. I believe he's sitting there with Carla when these things are being sent to me. I'm not the one that takes pictures of naked 3-year-olds. Because he did it. I can't help that's what he did. And so Earl, now these are Earl's words, and I know it's offensive, but I'm just going to say what he said. He said, you're fucking retarded too. Hope you're not planting evidence over there. And I said, nice language. Do you kiss your mother with that mouth or just kids? He said, you're not worth my time, you fat bitch. Why don't you get a life, start working on a treadmill, and take care of your medical condition? And I said, really? You're calling someone fat? Honey, please. And he said, just stay away from us, psycho. And I said, you're the one harassing and threatening me. And he said, I don't give a fuck. Leave me alone and my family. And I said, I've done nothing, yet you keep threatening me. And he said, because you're like my ex-wife. And I said, so you like to threaten women? And he said, psycho. And I said, well, I am not sexually repressed, so I have to look at naked kids. And now he's got in parentheses the word psycho in all capitals. And I said, child milestone. And he says, you don't even know how to spell. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. And I said, got me there, tough guy. And he says, I'm blocking you now, so goodbye. And I don't care what you post. Everybody knows me, psycho. And so I said, I'm crushed. Am I blocked yet? How about now? Nope, not yet. You must be busy patrolling or looking at cameras to find kids. And he said, no, I was showing all of this to my mom, and now you got her crying. And I said, sure I do. And he said, you're a mean person, and God will deal with you someday. And I said, you are. I am the only person fighting for Stephen and Brendan's innocence, while you, who said he was guilty and didn't visit till Making a Murderer came out, is just trying to make money off it. And he said, cycle, which I'm guessing he was trying to spell psycho, and he spelled cycle. Cycle, I got everything I need that like you, nothing. I said, then why begging people for money? Do you have a treadmill? And he said, yes, and I got an eating addiction, so it's considered a medical condition, so fuck off, cycle, because I got a put up with people in, or should I say animals in my life like you. And I said, just big boned, huh? What condition makes you molest your daughters? And he said, I didn't use, stupid cycle. And I said, not what your record says, honey. And he says, don't you have a life? You got a bother and harass other people and look at the records like a psycho? And I said, I have a great life, Barb. Thank you for asking. Your record, Earl. So sad. And he says, what's my record, not yours? It's none of your business. And I said, it's public record, big boy. And he said, for people that don't have a life that want to be in somebody else's, I hope you don't cut kids or a husband. They're probably miserable. And I said, you're the one contacting me. I'm just going about living my best life, and you keep contacting me to call names and threaten. And he says, you got that spelling thing going on again. And then this is when he sends me thumbs up. He sends me thumbs up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, all separate, so thumbs up 10 separate times. Now is a bunch of thumbs down, then the smiley emoji that's sleeping that has Z's on it, then a bunch of baby bottles, then a bunch of pigs. And so then I go, ooh, pictures. Then he sends a bunch of snakes. And I said, you're really slacking on your patrol duties. And he says, trust me, you don't want me over there. And I said, I'm not your type. I'm an adult. And he said, go home if you got one. And I said, you have 2, don't ya? And he says, no. And I said, no, what's the place in Crivets with Kayla then? And he said, I have 4, stupid bitch. I said, yet you need money from supporters. And he says, and they're all paid for. And I said, wonder where you got the money. And he says, actually, I got 5, sorry. And I said, yeah, I can see how that's hard to keep track of. And he said, I heard you didn't have no money. I said, yep, sadly, I'm poor, but I don't ask people to give me money. Weird. And he said, your parents must be proud. And I said, they are. Thanks for asking. He said, have a good life. Stay out of mine. Goodbye, psycho. And I said, was it you or Chuck that ruined Steven's truck? Carla says you guys did it. Because what you need to know there is one of the few things that Steven asked is he had an F-250 that he bought when he got out for the Bernston case. And so he bought himself this truck, and this truck is like, he loves this truck. And so he entrusted his brothers to take care of this truck while he is in prison now. And so they're supposed to be making sure the engine's okay, let it run a little bit, all that. And so Steven thinks that truck is still sitting there waiting for him when he gets out, but Earl destroyed it. It's gone. And Steven doesn't know that. So his answer to me is, none of your business, stay in your own. And I said, all he asked is for you to start it occasionally too. He got home, but until he got home, but you trashed it and don't tell him. Shame, shame, shame. And Earl says, and it's my mom's and I crushed it. And I said, no, it's not. Steven is so proud of that truck and can't wait to get it back, but you're lying to him. And he said, I already got it, girlfriend and 2 boyfriends. I don't need no more, so leave me alone. And I said, you're the one messaging me, sweetheart. And then he says, do you want to see a picture of it in the crusher? So I said, sure. And he says, you're not my type. Goodbye. I like old man now. And I said, so you lied again? No picture? Sad face. And he says, how much will it cost me to leave me alone and my family, because I can see that's all you want is money? And then I said, are you looking in a mirror? I am the only one not asking for money, unlike you. And that was the last message until Earl then messages me again, this time on December 3rd at 7:51 p.m. And he says, I love you, Jax West. I'm going to steal you away from your boyfriend with my charm and my love. And then a bunch of hearts. And then he sent a chicken picture with 3 hearts over its head. And then that's where he blocked me, so I couldn't respond to it, where it says this person isn't available right now. So that was my conversation with Earl. So that's why I think it's hilarious when people want to attack me and go, Steven's family doesn't like you. This is his family. Why should I care? Seriously. Really? Let me scroll to what I can see. Christy says, I was in a hotel room on vacation, laughing my ass off when this was going on. I will never forget this. Darcy says, are you flirting with me? Best line. Christy says, I was dying. Lisa says, yuck. Miley says, flirting with me? Oh no, I'm an adult. Haha, that's the best. Corey and Lisa got emojis. Darcy says, this reminded me of the leave Britney alone girl. Leave Britney alone. Lisa says, shorten the site down. Denise says, when all this shakes out, I bet you Earl's hands are dirty. Dale Ann says, who is she referring to? And people letting you know I was talking, it was a message with Earl. Dale Ann says, he is a loser from what I have read and heard. Andrew says, I'm dying. He threw a Justin Bieber song like at you. My mama don't like you and she likes everyone. Oh, really? That's what that is? People laughing. Lisa commenting on trespassing. Diana saying, sign in the back on point. Love it. Oh, yeah. That's actually from the salvage yard. That sign behind my head. That is, I don't know if you can see it. But that is from the salvage yard. Jeff made them a new sign that didn't, because that one was written by Chuck, because it even has Chuck signed it down on the bottom. And you actually see that sign in Making a Murder. So Jeff made them a nice one. And the video is posted here in Gossip where you can see when we actually gave it to Chuck. And then I also have pictures posted of when Chuck and Jeff were taking down this sign and putting up the new one. And so then, according to Carla, somebody stole that the sign that we gave them, and then she accused Jeff and I of stealing it back. Just really ridiculous. Jen says, sorry, Jax, just now saw you were live. What's going on? And Cindy's saying, what did I miss? People replying to each other. Amanda saying, what have I missed? Sounds like should have been here from the start. Allison saying, what's going on? Sorry for people who joined late. Lisa says, they're from 2018. Yes. Chrissy says, November to December 2018, same time as the trespassing. Denise said, shit, he did quote a Justin Bieber song. I shows you how clueless I am. Miley says, I knew it. He does love you. Lisa says, oh my God. Amanda says, SG. SG stands for Sandra Greenman. Darcy says, they say boys bully girls that they like. Lisa says, he's definitely not the sharpest tool in the shed. Sherry says, not really about his family. It's all about Steven. Okay, so now I'm down to the bottom. So, yeah, so that's my conversation with him. Let me scroll up because I know I saw when I was talking with Sandra, so maybe I can read you some of that since this is a that I started this to talk about Sandra. Where is it now? Oh no, that's Drizzen. Sorry, still scrolling. Because I'll read you once I find it, the final messages between her and I won't go through it all, but where we were arguing, because you'd be interested in that, right? Where we argue. There it is. me see. I'm just scrolling up to the top to go see all of our messages. Just out of curiosity, what all of our messages were. Why not go down this little memory lane? Still scrolling. There's obviously I talked to her more than I thought I ever did. So there might be stuff in here that I just won't read because it's not anything of anything. It could just be stupid talk. But once upon a time, the two of us got along and I supported her. And then she became very territorial. All right. So the first time we messaged was January 6th of 2017. I messaged her first. And I said, "Hi, Sandra. We have never talked, even though we are Facebook friends. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on me, and I'm not going to judge you by some of the people you are friends with who say awful things about me. I wanted to reach out to you since you are posting on Stephen Avery Project group that no drama will come to that page or group. We are dedicated to helping Stephen and Brendan. You have nothing to fear from that page and group." Because, so I had Stephen Avery Project at that time, and Sandra would post in there, which I always found weird since I'm supposed to be the hated one. So why are you posted on Stephen Avery Project? So her response was, "Thank you. I have never judged you by what others say. I'm only here because of my support and love for Stephen. I have no reason to fight with anyone unless they badmouth Steve. And I don't think that will happen in a support group. Good luck with the page." And so I said, "Thank you very much, Sandra. You're welcome here and to have a voice on SAP. If you ever have any suggestions for anything we can do to help Stephen, please reach out to me. I have been told he wanted his canteen plugged, but Curtis wouldn't do it, so I plugged it yesterday. If you know anything Stephen would like us to do, let us know." And she said, "I sure will." And I said, "Oh yeah, I remember this. This was funny. Would you be willing to do a Q&A with the members of SAP? We would make a thread that is your thread and people can ask you questions, but people would know that you obviously can't answer things about his case now and won't address any drama. I think people really want to get to know Stephen and you are the one who knows him best." And then she said, "If I had the answer, I would be happy to do that, but you do understand I cannot talk about. I really don't need it. Us or with an S even here, we don't make that much spaghetti. I mean, that works fine for me and I get by with as little as possible. And then she said, "Wrong message, LOL." And so she says to me, "I would be happy to do that if everyone understands I cannot talk about the case in depth. I would love to talk about Steve." And I said, and at this time, she didn't have her own group. So I said, "Absolutely. Anything that is drama or about his case will be deleted. We want that thread to be positive and a true support for him and for you too. You have gone through hell for that man just for loving and supporting him. Do you have a favorite picture of you and Stephen that we could put in the first post? I will put it in the new SAP group as that's more personable, but we will put a link on the page that has more people." And she said, "I do. It's on my Facebook page, but I don't know how to send it to you." And I said, "Is it the one that was your most liked picture from one of those quiz things? Since you and I are Facebook friends, it came up in my news feed. I can go into your Facebook and get it. Otherwise, if you're on a smartphone or tablet, you hold your finger on the picture and save it. Then you can send it to me." And I said, "This one?" And I sent her a picture of her and Stephen, and she said, "That one is okay." And I said, "Or this one?" And I sent her another picture. And she says, "The first one is better. There is one with me in black that I like, but can't look it up right now." And I said, "I will look for it." And then I found it and sent her that picture, and she said, "I like that." And I said, "Okay, great. Any question you don't want to answer, just ignore. If anyone gets nasty, we will delete and block them. Your thread is all love and support." And I said, "Okay, it is posted and linked in other groups. Thank you so much for this. I think it's good for people to see Stephen through your eyes, that he's a real person." And she said, "I agree." And now this message is on January 6th, where I think I'm in my message to her, I don't have to explain it because it's right there. I said, just checking in now that Carla is doing the same thing with you in her group to see if you're done with SAP, and I should delete the thread so people stop asking questions. And she said, yes, I believe so. And I said, okay, I will delete it then. Thank you for trying. And she said, you're welcome. I did try. And I said, I know, I have been sent screenshots of you calling us dumb girls, etc. I don't hold it against you, though. I knew Carla was going to make you stop. And she said, I didn't call you dumb girls. I never would, honest. And I said, okay, I believe you. I know you're stuck in a horrible position. Just know that SAP will never be drama, and we truly just want to support him. And she said, that is so good. That is all I want. And I said, if there's anything we can do, please let me know. Because now what happened here is, just as I described, I had asked her if she would do a thread in Stephen Avery Project. MAM gossip didn't exist at this time, I don't believe. So I thought it would be nice to have a thread that was Sandy's thread, and at any time people can ask her questions and she could answer. And so it started. I'm sure you could look into the archives and in Stephen Avery Project group, and you will see where we had the thread for Sandra. And then Carla, like 3 days or so afterwards, did the exact same thing in her group. And so then Sandra chose Carla to be over there because she's so intimidated by, that she's got to be nicey nice with the family. So now the next message is June 2nd, so 6 months later, and it's me sending it to her. I said, hi, Sandy. I want to apologize to you for bringing up the drama in SAP today. I can't believe the people still want to say lies about me, and sometimes I have to respond. The family doesn't have to like me for me to 100% support Stephen and Brendan. I mean no harm to the guys or their family, but I won't allow lies to be posted about me either. And then she said, it's okay. I hate to see members of the support groups fighting. To me, it's just all about Steve. To me, he is all that matters. Don't let them get to you. And I said, I am always here to support Stephen, Brendan, or any of the family that wants me. I can't stand all the drama crap. And she said, me either. And I said, you keep your head up. I know you are there for the right reasons. And she said, thank you, I am. So then I messaged her on June 8th. And I said, I know you don't need me to tell this to you again, but keep your head up, kid. All these haters and doubters are no match for the truth or for Kathleen, because I'm guessing what happened here is this is when she was being all out attacked by people. And so I still felt bad for her at that time. This was before she went totally to the dark side. She said, I strongly agree. Steve has so much hope now. I hate to think of him going through another trial, but that is not what KZ wants. So hopefully she will win the battle. And I said, she will. Stephen just needs to keep that positive attitude he has had for so long. And why is he so positive? Because he knows he's innocent. And now he finally has someone who will fight to prove it. And she said, amen, in 2 hearts. And I said, give Stephen a hug for me. I haven't heard from him in a while, but I'm still 100% behind him. And I'm so happy he is going to be going home soon. And she said, I will. And I said, just a heads up, Lynn Hartman is posting shit on the SAP page, not the group, but the page. I just responded to her. I'm not going to tolerate her bullshit. And Sandra said, good. She has to be careful. KZ won't take much more from her. Can you send me a screenshot? And I said, I just banned her. Let me see if I can see her post still. And she said, thanks. And then I said, I think this is all of it. It's grayed out because she's banned no one, but I can see her post now. And so I sent her all the screenshots of whatever Lynn Hartman was trying to post on Stephen Avery Project. And Sandra said, wow, thanks for getting rid of her. And I said, she's pathetic. I know what she's about, and I know what she did to Stephen. She should crawl back into her hole, but of course she is out again to try to sell her story some more. And Sandy said, sad. I hope KZ does get wind of this or she will freak. And then she corrected, she meant that KZ doesn't get wind of it. And I said, okay, I won't mention it then. I will be seeing her in a couple weeks. And Sandy says, if you see any article that is Lynn's, then tell KZ. I have to be careful because I have an investment in it with Steve. And I said, okay, I absolutely will. Is there anything I or SAP can do to help. If there is anything, let me know. I called Scott yesterday to offer my help, but they still hate me, LOL. So to offer my help, then that was going to be, was that when Brendan, there was a chance Brendan was going home? I can't remember why I offered Scott help. I said, regardless of how he, Carla, or whoever in the family feels about me, I support Stephen and Brendan and will help however I can. And she sent hearts. And so now I message her again. This time is on June 16th. And I said, I'm not sending this to start drama, but Stephen should be aware that one of Carla's admins is posting that Stephen is guilty. And then it's a screenshot of two of Carla's admins posting that Stephen is guilty. And Sandy says, that is very upsetting. What are they doing in a support group? I thought those in groups believed in him 100%. And I said, I know Carla regularly is in those guilty groups. I was sent these this morning. The Tracy girl is an admin of Carla's family group. I don't know why you would have someone representing Stephen saying such things. And Sandy says, I don't either. I need to stay out of it, but I would love to ask Carla about it. And I said, I know you do. If you say a word, the family will turn on you. Again, I just wanted to make you sure of it, as I know you have true intentions towards Stephen. I was snowed by all of these people at the beginning, by the way. And Sandy says, I am behind him all the way, even when we fight. And I said, no relationship is perfect. You guys have gone through so much stress. You're bound to fight at times. And she said, so true. And now on July 5th, I messaged her saying, what's wrong? Are you okay? And I know that's because something that Sandy does for attention is she'll all of a sudden leave Facebook groups. So that's her. I'm taking my ball and storming off, and then everybody's like, oh my God, she left groups. And she didn't respond to me on July 5th. So then I message her on July 9th and I say, could you ask Stephen to call me? I have a few things he needs to know. And she said, I will try to remember. Film crew is with me and it gets a little hectic, but I promise I will do my best. And I said, have a great visit. Wish him a happy birthday for me. And she gave a thumbs up. And then, so that was on the 9th at 6:30 in the morning. And then on the 9th at 7:56 p.m., I said, thank you for telling him he called me tonight. And she said, you're welcome. So now the next time I talk with Sandy, this is 10:23. And I said, can you ask Stephen to call me? I want to ask him how he wants Stephen Avery Project to deal with KZ accusing Bobby and Scott. And she said, if I remember, I will ask him tomorrow. I'd suggest not talking about it at all at the moment. I have known this was coming. She always does that. She pretends like she knew something in advance when she really didn't. I'd suggest not talking about it at the moment. I've known this was coming, so I've had plenty of time to digest it, but try to get people to just leave the family alone right now. And I said, that's no worries on our end. We aren't connected to the family and they hate us. And she said, not all of us. And I said, I know you and Stephen are the only ones, and I'm good with that. All I care about is Stephen and Brendan being free. And she gave a thumbs up. And so then on the 24th, October 24th, I said, thank you for telling Stephen. I just got off the phone with him. I will always have your back. I know you can't let it be known you talked to me, but I know other than his parents, you are the only one who cares about Stephen. And then she said, I love him with all my heart. Glad he called. And I said, it was just as I thought. Other than his parents, none of the family has been behind him, so he has no reason to defend them. As he told me, he's not taking the blame for anyone. Bobby and Scott have always been suspicious. And she said, yes, I know they have, but there is still Ryan that I wonder about. I really have no idea. I just know it wasn't Steve. And I said, I think Ryan helped the cops frame Stephen because he thought he was guilty and wanted to make sure he was found guilty. I have always thought it was Ryan or it was Scott Bobby. And she said, me too, but there were so many people in Teresa's life that was never looked into. And I said, very true. It's not defaming her to say the truth. She was having sex with multiple people, including her roommate and a married man. And she said, I know, and they were never looked at. I even called Jerry when I found out something about Teresa, and he just said, yes, I know, but never did a thing about it. And I said, I talked to Jerry after Brendan's last hearing for a while. He does seem truly concerned about Stephen. And she said, I once thought do too, but not after he didn't want me to get KZ. I said, I think they were just overwhelmed. But I'm sure in KZ's case, he probably didn't want someone more famous taking over. Jerry obviously likes attention. And she said, I guess, but they didn't do anything. And KZ gets right down and dirty, works right with her team, no stone left unturned. And I said that filing just has so much in it, so much to show that many people should have been looked into, that had motive and opportunity, but instead they focused on Stephen, who had absolutely no reason to do this. He had never been violent. He had a girlfriend. He was going to be getting money. No reason for him to do that at all. If he was going to hurt someone, it would have been his cousin who did this all to him to begin with, and he didn't do anything to her. And she said, he sure isn't violent. Been in prison 30 years altogether and never in a fight. Always does what he is told. And I said, all you need to know is after serving 18 years for a crime he didn't commit, when he is then accused of a murder, he still just willingly talked to the police. A guilty man wouldn't do that. I don't like that people are upset with him or KZ for the family accusations, yet people forget all the things family said, saying that Stephen was guilty, that he went for years without his family other than his parents visiting him. And she said, true. I said, I know you have to keep peace with family, but Scott has always been suspicious and he is very controlling of Barb. He's abusive and Brendan doesn't like him. And then on the 27th, she said, Stephen wanted to ask you if you would put some kind of message on SAP asking if anyone has received angry or threatening messages from Scott. I know of a couple, but he thought this would be a better way. If they have any, would they be willing to email them to KZ? What do you think? Good idea? And I said, you know, the family will be so pissed at me if I post that, but they hate me anyway, and it's about Stephen. I will make a post, whatever Stephen wants. Does KZ know and approve? I don't want to hurt his case. And then I said, okay, the post is up. And then she says, I'm praying that he didn't do something foolish, but he insisted tonight, so let's keep fingers crossed. And I said, everyone is convinced KZ's latest tweet is for Barb to leave Scott. And she said, which post? And so then I gave her a screenshot of KZ's tweet where she says, need a certain abused woman to stop kidding herself, break away, and start telling the truth. And then the meme she included in that says, he was a weak man, the sort who needed to crush a woman in order to feel powerful. Sandy says, I had not seen that, but I bet it is aimed at Barb. What a mess. And I said, I really hope Barb didn't sacrifice Brendan to protect Scott. I have to tell you, the short time I was around them, Barb seemed controlled by Scott. She couldn't even be on the phone, had to be on speaker so he could listen. And the things Scott has said about Brendan are horrible. The way he's treated her boys are horrible. All but Bobby, that is. And Sandy said, I've always been a little afraid of him, but never wanted to say anything but to Steve. I always thought Barb loved him. We do crazy things for love sometimes. And I said, true, but Barb told me she wanted to leave him. I kid you not. On Friday, Barb told me I was being added to Brendan's visitors list. On Saturday, I went on a visit to Brendan's and waited in the car. Then Barb told me, while Scott was hunting, that she wanted to leave him. On Monday, Scott had me kicked out of Barb's group. It was crazy. I loved Barb. I'm guessing Scott didn't want her having friends. And she said, oh boy, I know he acts like he is so jealous of her. And I said, Barb really wants friends. She may be friendly with Carla lately, but they don't like each other. And now with KZ stirring everything up, it's going to get ugly. And she said, Barb was upset with me Monday because I have known for months who KZ was looking at, and I didn't tell Barb, but I couldn't. And I said, you're right. KZ knows what's best. You don't owe Barb anything, and she's not the one in prison the last 11 years. And then she said, we'll be 12 years in another week. And I said, plus 18 years before that. Why do people never think about Stephen and his feelings? And she said, true, people don't. And I said, we always hear about Barb or Brendan, never Stephen. It's wrong. Stephen has had his life robbed from him. He was taken from his kids and didn't get a chance to know them. And she said, I know, I pray someday he will be happy. And I said, you have made his time better for sure. Oh God, see, why do I nice to people? She says, I have tried very hard, even when things got rough with, and now she's got in quotes and then in all capitals, you know who. And I said, she who shall not be named, Ugh, which means Lynn. Oh God. See, I'm so stupid on these things. Okay, that's another fire I'm going to have to put out. Okay, so I said, you are a godsend for him, truly. I know what you go through. You are to be commended. You were the only one there for him besides his parents for years, well before making a murderer. And she said, thanks, dear. Then on October 28th, I sent her where it said, Barb has relayed a message on to me to ask me to take the post down. I said, have Stephen call and tell me that. She said she doesn't talk to him. And then Sandy said, they had a fight on the phone Tuesday night. I just hate all of this. Wish the truth would come out and it would be over. And I said, Carla and Barb are hitting me pretty hard all over Facebook. I let Kathleen know today that I have info on Scott, and she said she's interested. And I said, can you have Stephen call me again, please? And she said, I will if he calls tonight. And I said, thank you, stay strong. And she says, I'm trying. And then later on that night, she said, told him. And then I said, thanks, he called, but prison cut off after only a minute. Then on 10:30, I said, so much drama going on right now. I am shocked to hear that Barb may have been part of framing Stephen. Knock it off, whatever anybody's doing over there. I'm shocked to hear that Barb may have been part of framing Stephen. That's so sad to me if it's true. Barb is having a meltdown and admitted she doesn't care about Stephen. And Sandy never replied to that. And then on November 1, I send an Are You Okay? So whenever I send an Are You Okay is another time when she flips out and she leaves Facebook groups and then she goes back in them. And again, this is before she started her own, I believe. Then on 11/2, I say, if you could ask Stephen to call me again, I'd appreciate it. Things are getting crazy. And then she said, I just talked to Steve and he wants you to please take off anything bad about any family member. Things are rough enough for the family right now as it is. Don't fuel the fire, please. So now I say, Steve is the one that had me put it up to begin with. I told you what would happen if I did. Please have him call me to discuss. There is no going back now. It's out there. And Casey's filing shows that the family is lying. And she says, I understand, but a support group should not be a place to talk bad about blood relatives as it makes the whole family look bad. We don't need that right now. I will ask Steve to call you. And I said, okay, thank you. I am letting Kathleen know as well. And she says, please do. Thanks, dear. That on 11/2. So now this is stuff me saying that I don't think I've told people. But here you go. Kathleen told me not to take anything down. She said she is speaking to Stephen tomorrow and will contact me after, but not to do anything until then. I know I know those people are your friends and want to protect them, but they aren't the ones that need protecting. Stephen and Brendan do. So I know it's something that people don't like to believe, but I do have contact with Kathleen on occasion. That is not me trying to say that Kathleen and I are BFFs, because there are plenty of times when I have messaged her and she doesn't respond to me. But Kathleen told me not to take the post down that Stephen told me to put up to begin with. So Sandy says, somebody is not telling the truth. I just got off the phone with KZ and she said not to be putting the family down what's going on. I had a long talk with her. If it's what Steve wants, it should be done. And so now I sent her the screenshot of Kathleen saying, we will be speaking with Steven tomorrow. Please do not do anything until you hear from us. And so I sent her the screenshot and I said, I don't lie, Sandra. Until I hear from KZ, I am not doing anything. KZ is the one that has put the family on blast. And so then Sandy says, whatever, guess KZ lied to me. I really don't care, but I do care about Steve. Which I'm guessing what that means is she didn't talk to Kathleen at all, because why do I have the email from Kathleen saying that? And Sandra obviously then was lying and didn't talk to Kathleen at all. And so then then I say, maybe she doesn't know what Scott said to me, or maybe she means for you not to say anything. I know you do care for Steven. I will always respect you. As you were there for him when no one was, but his parents were. I know your intentions are pure. And she says, I don't know. I'm so tired of all of this. I don't know what's going on. I choose to keep my mouth shut and let it all play out. And I said, that's the smartest thing you can do. You do not want Carla and her angels coming after you. You're best just staying quiet. Keep talking and visiting Steven. He needs your support so much. I know you're a religious woman, so keep your faith. It's ugly right now, but you will get through this. And so then I say, I literally just got this. And so this was an email I got from Kathleen's office manager that says, Ms. Zellner requested that I contact you and tell you that Steven Avery has communicated to us that he does want the recent post deleted. He believes the legal filings speak for themselves. And I said, so see, no one is lying to you. It just hadn't been sent to me yet. And then Sandy says, thank God, I thought I was going nuts. Thanks. And I said, just so you're aware, here is what I just emailed back. And so I sent her the screenshot where I said, I don't know how to really do that. There's just so many posts and comments due to the recent filing. People are discussing Scott and Barb lying as well as Bobby. Would it be better if we post some kind of statement from Kathleen or Steven stating he still loves his sister and that from here forward, the page doesn't post anything negative about the family? And then Sandy said, sounds good. And I said, I'm not trying to go against Steven's wishes. It's just that it's out there and it's people discussing the filing. And I only put it in the group, not the page. The page, I keep the drama off. The page has 129,000 people. The group is only 2,500. Oh, God. So this was November of 2017. We had 129 and now we're at 205. So then on November 11th, I sent her, I would be very careful posting negative things on your page about Lisa Zakowski. I'm sure you're aware of what she attempted to do to me. I'm okay with being public enemy, but you're too sweet to deal with the kind of nastiness she will stoop to. She didn't respond to that. On 11/26, I sent her, have you seen what Chad is posting? And then she said, I was sent a screenshot. I have him blocked. I am so sick of all these groups. I'm getting out of most of them. It has got all out of hand. Poor Steven. He just never gets what he really wants. And I said, I try to do what Steve wants. That's the whole point of Steven Avery Project. I know the family doesn't like me, but I truly only want Steve and Brendan to be free. I talked to Steven about Chad once, as Chad was demanding Steven Avery Project promote his book, claiming it's what Steven wants. I said Steven would have to tell me that himself. Then when I talked to Steven, he said he's not getting the money for the book, so he doesn't want it on his website. I told Chad no, so he then threatened me. I let Kathleen know. The groups that Carla runs or is part of are not for the guys, they're for her. Steven Avery Project will always support Steven. Then on the 27th, I said, and Angie has requested into Steven Avery Project. It doesn't say we have you as a Facebook friend in common. Is this a fake? And I sent her a screenshot of that Angie Schumann trying to get into into Stephen Avery Project group. And then I also sent a message to Angie saying, why do you want in here? Because Angie is somebody who trashes me every chance she gets. Sandy says, with all that is going on with groups, this might be fake. And so then I sent Sandra the screenshot of Angie responding to me saying, first, I already thought I was in here, but I just want all the unbiased information I can get. And I said, you hardly think Stephen Avery Project is unbiased. And she said, how so? And I said, don't play dumb. And so now to Sandy, I said, I know she doesn't like me and I've seen her tweets talking nasty about me. So I'm very leery of this. And Sandy says, I'm just so confused since last night and I'm swamped with PMs. I've decided to take a break from groups until some of this crap is worked out. And I said, I don't know what is going on. I haven't heard from Stephen, but Chad is bad news. I'm going back and forth with this Angie. Even if she's your Angie, I don't trust her. She and all your girlfriends have done a lot of damage to me. For what reason? I stand by Stephen and Brandon no matter what. And then I sent her screenshots of Angie and I going back and forth. Sandy says, Steve and I talked about Chad last night and he said he never wanted to call him again and I blocked him and then he goes and calls. I can't wait to talk to Steve. And I said, Chad is pure evil and has a nasty criminal record, not someone Stephen should associate with. What is this? Oh, that's me sending her another screenshot. Why did it just jump way down here? I don't know why. It jumped down and won't let me scroll back up to where I was. It will only let me go up to August 13th of 2018. When I sent to her, I have messaged Jazz, but figured I would message you too. Why is Lisa posting in your group that Stephen has nothing to do with me? And she didn't respond to that. So that was August 18. And then the next thing is April 11th of 2019. So now we're into this year. And Sandy sends me, may I ask why you are slandering me on your videos? If you are a supporter of Steve, how does this help him? Just for the record, you know nothing about my relationship with Steve, and I have no intention of explaining to you. Where did you get the right to slander me? The rest of the family didn't do anything, but I don't sit still for slander. It will either stop or I will talk to an attorney. And then I said, just stop, Sandy. You really want to play the slander game with me? Your people have been trashing me for years, and you just giggled along. Stephen told me this. If you say it's not true, then take it up with him. And so then she said, can you just give me the reason for doing it? I have been by Steve's side since the beginning and worked my butt off for him. No one will ever know all I did. Just because he and I have had a few romantic issues should not be a factor in him getting out of prison. This isn't a contest on who the best supporter is. This isn't about the supporters. It isn't about you, and it isn't about me. It's about Steve. But then she sat there first talking about, look at all I did for him. He is desperate right now. He can't stand much more. I'm never leaving his side. We may fight, and we do, but I believe in him, and no matter how bad you talk about me, it won't drive me away. I just wish I knew why you feel the need to bash me so badly. You and I have never had a disagreement, so why all the hatred? And I said, hatred? No. It's too bad you're not so concerned when your pals tell lies about me to Stephen. I steal money? From where? I don't tell lies. You told Stephen to take you off because you're oh so mad he took your friends off who just used you to get on the list. I want no part of your Mean Girls Club. I support Stephen no matter what. You all have ulterior motives. And she said, I never told him to take me off list. And I said, that's not what he said. He also told me what you say about your friends and what your friends say about you. And she said, I don't know what he is telling you, and I don't care. I would never tell him that. But my question to you is, why make videos bashing me? How is that helping? And I said, why allow posts bashing me? Why tell Stephen I steal? I tell the truth, your group not so much. And she says, well, I have never posted anything about you, I don't think. And if I did, I'm sorry. Do you really want to help Steve? If you do, that's great. I'm asking you nicely. Please don't bash someone that never left his side. I've been there through it all, way before anyone believed in him. I fought for him, even against my family. I wanted to marry him. I was the only one there for him. Why do I need to be verbally abused now? I don't it. Can you tell me what you gain from this? Is it helping you? I just don't understand. And I said, it's been asked and answered. You told Steven to remove me because your backstabbing buddies talk shit about KZ. Yet you all constantly want to blame me for your actions. I am the only one supporting him. You are all in it for personal gain. And she said, okay, I'm sorry you can't understand. I was just trying to understand you, but I can't. Carry on. And I said, I don't need your permission. Kisses. And then on May 23rd, I said, so what would you like to know? So that would mean I saw that she posted something. So now I'm going to come directly at her. So then she responded with, I don't want to know anything, Jax. I just want copies of your videos where you talked against me and anyone close to Steve. I have too. Sorry, dear. I just can't stand to be lied about, but this isn't for me. This is Steve's request. And then I said, LOL, anything I say in my videos, I say to Steven. You can keep lying, but I know the truth. And she says, especially about the part where I put on my Facebook page, I was engaged to a child molester. Haven't been engaged since Steve. You're Finny. And I said, you did that, sweetie. And she said, I think I know what's on my own page. And I said, I beg to differ. And that was our final thing. All right, let me go to your comments. Amanda said, oh, thanks, Jax. Amanda says, am up for work soon, but too nosy to turn off. Darcy says, go for it. This is interesting. Nostalgia. Darcy says, she's bizarre. I get weird vibes from her in MAM. Darcy says, she reminded me of some of the more intense people in prison pen pals groups. That's understandable. What's Carla's group? I don't think I've heard of it. It's some calling itself, I don't even remember now because they changed the name. But it's some official family support group or something like that. Natasha says, once something is on the internet, you can never remove it. It's somewhere forever. Darcy says, what have I missed in the last 5 minutes? Cindy said, who is this Chad? And Lisa says, who's Angie? Chad Keller is this crazy child molester, literally, again, all these child molesters, because he's got a rap sheet for child molestation. He wrote he's got Facebook and a website on Steven. He wrote some book about him. And at some point he told me to post it on Stephen Avery Project. And I said only if, because I don't like the guy. I know he's a creeper. And I'm like, and he says, Stephen wants you to post it. And I said, well, Stephen can tell me that himself. And then when I talked to Stephen, Stephen's like, I'm not getting no money out of it. So no, I don't want it up there. And so I told the guy, I've talked to Stephen, and Stephen said no. And then that's when he said to me, he called me a cunt and said when he sees me, he's going to punch me in the face. Let's see. Can I find his messages? Wait, that's taking me out of my messages, isn't it? That took me out of my messages. I put it in the wrong thing. Hold on. Hold. Put it in the wrong search bar. And this computer just sucks ass. God, really? It won't just give it to me, and I'd have to sit here and scroll back on all of them to go through and find it. Why is it because he's probably blocked now? And Angie, while I'm sitting here trying to scroll back and find the messages with Chad, so she's with that Tracy Strunzy chick who's not a lawyer, but then would pretend to be. But then everything the chick would post is second guessing everything Kathleen does. And it's like, so how are you a supporter that visits with Steven? You claim you're this big supporter of Steven, yet you're gonna rip on. Oh my God, this thing's just all right. So I guess we're not going to do the Chad Keller thing today because this is just working very slow unless I pull it up on my iPad. But he's just a wacko. We'll leave it at that. Natasha, what's with all the pedos, right? Sherry says, Chad is creepy. I think he's on drugs. Yes, Lisa, he is the one that wrote that Beyond Avery Road. So, I mean, I don't know if I approved your post or somebody else did, but I'm like, ugh, Chad, I don't want to talk about Chad anymore. I want him to just go away. Andrea says, I love all this tea you're spilling tonight. Helps to paint a picture of some of these people that I didn't know much about. Tom says, I'm late to the party. What's caused this chat about past people? Well, it started because I was talking about Sandra, because Sandra had posted a picture with Steven, and then people were asking about Sandra, and so many people just see Sandra like I did at the beginning of, oh, she's just a sweet old lady that cares about Steven. And there's more behind that. So I'm like, all right, I'll just go live instead of typing it all up. So that's what this has been about. Oh my God, I've been on almost 2 hours already. So, and it's 7:00 my time. So let me see if there's any other comment on here. Lisa says, I was just curious about him and where his ideas came from. Yeah, he's got some wacky ideas. Chad does. Like, that Jerry Buting is part of the whole thing. A lot of odd stuff. So there you go. There's Sandra Greenman, and you got a little extra added in there where I read you the stuff with Earl. But maybe by reading you guys that stuff, then you'll also know why I'm at where I'm at on this, where people are like, oh, well, if Steven likes Sandy, no, fuck her. And I read you the messages with Earl. Oh, that's Steven's brother. Fuck him. I don't, I'm sorry. There's plenty of family members I have that I don't speak to, nor do I care. Just because you're blood related to somebody doesn't mean you have to have them in your life, and that it means they're good people. Tom says, oh yeah, there was a question about when that picture was taken. Lisa says, gotcha. Thank you for explaining. And Tom says, LOL. So, oh yeah, and I got to post that picture as I see it's still down here of me, Frizen, and Knight Rider. Because it's all about me. So I'm going to go because I've been on here for almost 2 hours, and we'll go live probably tomorrow if we get Kathleen's filing. So I'll go live on Steven Avery Project. Because that's where the bulk of the people are. So I'll go live on Steven Avery Project to read it. And then I'll go live in here as well, because in here is where you get exactly how I think on things. So like all this stuff that I just told you all about Sandy and even Chad and Earl, that would never go on Stephen Avery Project, because that's just not appropriate. So it wouldn't happen there. So Monday, I don't know what I have going on. I think I have a conference call at noon. And then possibly a meeting. But I think I'll be mostly home. So I can't tell you when I'll go live, because we don't know for sure when we will get the filing. If you get the filing before you see it posted on here, please submit it, because you may come across it before we do here. Also, just know the first person who finds it and posts it is the one that will share. We're not going to share everybody's copy, their post and their link to where you can read it, because then the whole news feed is going to fill up with the same thing. So don't think it's anything about you that we didn't approve it. We just don't want a million of the same thing, of that one, but I'm thanking you all in advance for wanting to share it here and make sure it's here. But if your post on that is not approved, it's going to mean it's already on the group somewhere. So, let me see if there's anything else I need to address. Dawn says, before you go, do you know why KZ filing was rejected? Because she filed it electronically, and they're saying it was too big to be filed electronically, and they wanted the actual paper copies. So she needs to either mail it to them or walk it into the courthouse. So, and I know Kathleen had tweeted something saying she was flying when they completed it or something. So I don't know if they had anybody available to now drive it to Manitowoc. Manitowoc's like a 3-hour drive from here, I believe, because Kathleen's office is like 5-10 minutes from my house. And so we're right by the highway. Her office is right on this highway, as is my house. So you just jump on that highway and you go straight out there. So it's not that bad, but yeah, they might not have had somebody then available. And I know I had called, I called one courthouse, or not called, I emailed one of the courthouses and asked them if they were open on Monday, since Monday's a holiday. And they said they were. But I did not contact the right court. But I will assume if that court is open, then the appeals court would be. But maybe I could be wrong. I don't know for sure. So, but we'll find out tomorrow. And if if somebody else knows that answer too, feel free to get that posted. If you find out tomorrow the court was closed and we won't be getting the filing until Tuesday. And then Tuesday, I've got a thing in the morning, but I'm home by 9:30. And then I have a meeting in Chicago at night. So I should be home in the middle of day on Tuesday if we don't get it until Tuesday. So, all right. So I think that's everything, and we're at 1:58. Oh, I should show you real quick before we go. Justice with Jack's shirt. So, all right. I'm out. I'll talk to you tomorrow or Tuesday. Have a good evening.